feel like I'm in the Highlander.
What's the Highlander?
It's a movie.
Any good?
Very good. It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for best movie ever made.
Hi, I'm Joe Farace. Welcome to Joe's Movie Club, and we're here to answer the question of the day, and that is Highlander the best movie ever made? Well, I don't think so, and I don't even think it's the best cult movie ever made, but it is a fun movie, and it's beloved by many people, including myself. I have all the different versions of Highlander, from the first version to the director's cut to the Highlander 2, kind of a strange movie, including the Highlander 2 Renegade version, which makes it a little bit better. Highlander 3 and Highlander 4, and each one is, like most sequels, not as good as the original. But how good is the original? For that percentage of you who don't know about Highlander, let me give you a really quick synopsis. It's all about these guys who are immortal. And they have these powers, beside being immortal. And if one chops the head off of the other one, it gets all the other guys' powers. And it all boils down to a showdown and the very famous expression, there can be only one. And then they all live happily ever after and do whatever they do. I probably have more versions of Highlander and the sequels than almost any other movie except for Forbidden Planet, where I have everything going back to the VHS pan and scan version to the latest Blu-ray. I love Forbidden Planet. We'll talk about that some other time. Okay, but we're here to talk about Highlander. And is this 4K version any good? So let's get to the point of it. There's been some talk around the internet and all the pundits, talking heads on YouTube, saying that this scan, this 4K scan made by Studio Canal, French company, that makes some interesting movies as well. Luc Besson movies come to mind. Anyway, there's some buzz that it's not very good. The truth is, it is pretty darn good. Some people hate film grain, and the film grain in this film is noticeable, but not objectionably so. And even in some of the night street scenes that they shot, where obviously they either shot it with a different film stock or they push process the film. Now we're going to go into geekdom for a little bit. You can skip ahead if you don't like this part. Push processing is where you overexpose the film when you're shooting it, but you also overdevelop it so it kind of matches up. But the problem is when you get, there's no free lunch in any kind of film, whether it's photography or cinematography. The trade-off is increased film grain. So in some of the scenes where they're walking down the streets at night, and there's a bunch of those, in some of those, not all of them, the film grain is a little more noticeable. Is it objectionable? Is it like the weird snow stuff that's in the King Kong for a Blu-ray that I talked about? Link below. That I talked about? No, it's not as bad as that. It's there. You know, this was shot on film. You can see that was shot on film. I don't mind that. Some people do. To each his own. But the film looks way better than a Blu-ray. And it's worth mentioning, and I'm going to go off of one of my famous tangents here, that this is the director's cut. I really, really wished that they would have included the original film on this disc. And it's a 2-disc set. You get a Blu-ray of the transfer that Studio Canal did, and you get a 4K. I would have liked, and I really think I prefer the original as released film. And I think that's kind of true in a lot of films. Blade Runner is a noticeable one where Ridley Scott just lost his mind and he had to make all these different versions. But to me, the best version, the one with the voiceover by Harrison Ford, is the best version. And I think that's true of most of these films where the people had to make a director's cut. The worst version of a director's cut of all time is one for Amadeus. My old mentor back when I lived in Maryland was an incredibly creative guy named Edward Bafford. And he was a darkroom wizard. And he would often say, there should be somebody standing next to you when you're working in the darkroom and you're getting carried away with what you're doing to hit you up alongside the head with a 2x4 to shake you out of it. And I think that Milos Forman, who's one heck of a director, needed somebody to hit him up alongside the head to do a better version of Amadeus, which is a movie I really love. The original feature, not the director's cut. The extra bits that Russell Mulcahy added to this movie, they don't add anything, especially at the opening, which happens at Madison Square Garden, and there's a wrestling match, and there's a heck of a shot that looks like a drone shot, but geez, in the 80s, they didn't have drones to do this, or maybe they did, I don't know. It's a heck of a shot, and that's the way the feature film opens, but not the way that the director's cut opens. So Russell, man, you should need to open it the way the feature did. And I think the feature is a better version. But that doesn't mean that this is not good. This is still a lot of fun. And you have to admit, the casting choices are kind of interesting. To play the Highlander, a man from Scotland, a Scottish warrior, although I'm not sure how much of a warrior he is based on the battle scenes at the beginning, they choose a Frenchman. Why not? Okay. Cool. But Christopher Lambert, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but he has a presence. And if you've seen Greystoke, which is his version of Tarzan, directed by the guy who directed Chariots of Fire, that's a really good movie, and he's really good in it. So that's something you might want to check it out. Maybe I'll put a link to Greystoke down here. And then to choose a Spanish person who says he's really Egyptian, they pick a Scotsman, Sean Connery. And he is absolutely wonderful in this film. He has a kind of a medium-sized role in it. But he's electrifying while he's on screen. His performance is really one of the highlights of the film. But, it's a fun movie. It's very 80s. All the effects are optical. But they don't look bad. And they don't look bad in 4K. What's really good in this film is the practical effects. There is a battle between him and Clancy Brown, a terrific actor. And it's interesting to see Clancy so young in this film because he looks like a very young guy. But he's a badass, and he's out to kill our hero, Connor McLeod. And there's a battle scene on the rooftop of this movie studio for whatever reason. And it's incredible. It's all practical effects with maybe whenever they bang their swords together, because you got to chop their heads off with a sword. And Lambert has a sword that was given him by Sean Connery, which is kind of a samurai sword. And whereas Clancy's got this big battle axe sword that, that could probably chop Connor McLeod in half. But anyway, the damsel is in distress. She's hanging from wires on the signs, and they're fighting. And then, all those effects, all those practical effects, except for the swords banging together, which is where I was trying to go with that, there are sparks flying. It makes it cool, I guess. I don't know. But then they fall through the roof, because you got to do that to change the scene. And they fall into this big room with a bunch of glass windows behind. And when they have the battle, at the end of the battle, you can already figure out who won this, right? All the windows explode. And it is absolutely fabulous. It's like the movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a lot of fun. And there are parts. And now we get to one of the key ingredients of the movie. And that is the songs by Queen. And one of the songs is called Who Wants to Live Forever, which is especially poignant being sung by Freddie Mercury. And there's a scene in the Highlands, and Connor McLeod is with this woman, and they're in love, and she's aging, but he's not, because he's immortal. And they play Freddie singing Who Wants to Live Forever. It breaks your heart. It's beautiful. And there are 4 or 5 or 6, I don't know how many other Queen songs in this. There's a really good documentary about the music and about Queen in the extra features. Now, what's really interesting to me is some of the new extra features, I think there's really only 1 or 2, were shot in 4K. And I think this is going to be a trend that we're going to see in the future, that instead of having all the special features on a separate Blu-ray disc, they're going to be 4K on the main disc. But anyway, the music in this movie is great, and not just what people would call source music, which is the music that was provided by Queen, and also the score by Michael Kamen. He's a terrific composer. I mean, he's done some wonderful films, and his music is always interesting. But combined with the music that was provided by Queen, this is an amazing soundtrack. Here's what the disc looks like. It's got this really fancy slipcover that looks really nice, actually, real shiny and stuff. And inside, you got two discs. You got a 4K disc over here, and you got the Blu-ray over here. But you also got some cards, a bunch of cards. I mean, some people like this kind of stuff. I'm not much of a fan of it, but what the heck? You know, if you really love this movie, and I love it, you want to have these cards because they're just too fun to be around. So what's my take? If you love Highlander, you need to get this 4K because it looks way better than the Blu-ray, and it sounds pretty good. They have two different soundtracks that you can listen to. I went with the default because I tried both versions, the 5.1 and I tried the default, and it sounded better to me. And I stuck with that through the whole movie. It's a great movie, a lot of fun, and it's not that expensive. I when I ordered it from Amazon, the price went down like almost $3 after I ordered it, and it was pretty inexpensive to start with. So if you're a fan of Highlander, you want to get it. If you're wondering what the fuss is all about with this movie, and is it the best movie ever made, according to Ricky Bobby, but you want to get a copy of the 4K version of Highlander. So what's coming up in the future? Well, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I noticed that I've been doing a lot of reviews of science fiction movies because I kind of like science fiction movies, and that's kind of what's been coming out recently. But I'd like to hear from you. So if you have any comments, please leave them below. Do you want to see more drama, film noir, horror? When it comes to horror, as I said in the last video, I prefer, and I'm only going to watch Universal classic horror. Any of the new modern stab, kill movies, nah, they're not for me. If you have any preference of what you like to see, let me know. Or if there are any specific films that you like, let me know about that too. In the meantime, I would really appreciate it if you would like, that would be nice. And if you would subscribe, that would be even better, because maybe it'll let one or two more people know about my little corner of YouTube and these little dopey little reviews I do of movies. And for those people who have commented, you've been so nice and so sweet. I really appreciate it. And please keep watching and tell your friends, you know, they might get a kick out of it too. So thanks a lot. I'll see you again real soon.